10 Tudor watches that are going up in value. Fast, if you've been watching the watch market this year, you've probably noticed something sneaky. Tudor is no longer just Rolex's little brother. It's the kid who grew up, hit the gym, and started winning races. Prices are tightening, certain references are quietly getting harder to find, and collectors who used to overlook Tudor are circling back like, wait, why is this so good? In the next few minutes, we'll count down 10 Tudor watches that are going up in value fast. Pieces with real stories, not just hype. We'll talk design, movements, why demand is building, and what to check before you buy. And yes, number one is a watch that used to be sleeper cheap and is now sprinting out of reach. If you love finding the next thing before everyone else, do two quick favors. Hit subscribe, tap like, and share this with a friend who keeps sending you listings at 2 a.m. It helps more than you know. And stick with me to the end, because I'll give a 1-minute checklist to avoid the 3 mistakes that cost collectors the most money on rising Tudors. Let's dive in. 10 Tudor Heritage Chrono. If you've ever seen one of those vintage Tudor ads from the 1970s, the ones splashed with wild colors and racing stripes, you'll understand why the Heritage Chrono matters. When Tudor revived this design in 2010, it wasn't chasing nostalgia just for style points. It was reviving a time when the brand had a pulse of its own, fearless, sporty, and unafraid to play with orange and blue, while everyone else played it safe. The Heritage Chrono takes its DNA straight from the original Monte Carlo, the chronograph that captured the spirit of motorsport and adventure in the 70s. But this isn't a fragile vintage piece you have to baby. The 70330N delivers all that retro swagger wrapped in modern reliability. Its 42mm steel case has presence without shouting, the bidirectional bezel gives it that old-school tool vibe, and those color pops on the minute track and subdials are pure adrenaline for the wrist. Under the hood beats the automatic caliber 2892 with a Dubois de Praz chronograph module, a setup known not for hype, but for endurance. It's smooth, accurate, and easy to service. The kind of movement collectors trust to keep running for decades. For years, the Heritage Chrono floated under the radar, trading around $2,500, occasionally less, while everyone was too busy chasing Black Bays. But collectors are starting to look back, realizing that this was the model that reintroduced Tudor to the world stage. It's the bridge between the brand's vintage soul and its modern revival. Now, values are inching toward the $4,000 to $5,000 range, and early production models with their distinctive gray dials and crisp bevels are getting harder to find. Dealers call it a thinking man's Tudor, the one you buy because you understand the brand's arc, not because someone on Instagram told you to. If Tudor were a band, the Heritage Chrono would be the track that brought them back on stage after years of silence. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the one real fans know changed everything. And that right there is why this watch is quietly climbing in value. 9 Tudor Pelagos FXD Marine Nationale. If the Black Bay line is Tudor's love letter to vintage charm, then the Pelagos FXD is its war diary, built for professionals, not for show. This isn't a watch made to impress at a dinner party. It's made for survival at the bottom of the ocean. When Tudor announced its new partnership with the Marine Nationale, the French Navy, it wasn't just a marketing ploy. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, the Tudor Submariner was the issued equipment for French divers. The 42mm titanium case feels like a ghost on the wrist. All business, no flash. It doesn't even have a traditional spring bar. Instead, it uses fixed lugs, so you can't just swap out the strap for something more fashionable. The design forces you to commit to the rugged NATO look, just like the divers who wore the original. It's a detail that sets this model apart from the others. Inside, the COSC certified MT5602 keeps running with 70 hours of power reserve and chronometer accuracy. It's the beating heart of many other Black Bays, but here it's housed in a case designed to take a beating. There's no date window, no polishing, just pure functionality. When it launched, collectors weren't sure what to make of it. Too military? Too specialized? But in just a few months, the mood has changed. The FXD is more than just a watch. It's a statement, a rebellion against over-engineered luxury. Dealers can't keep them in stock, and the secondary market has them listed well above retail, a rarity for modern Tudors. What's driving its value is not hype, it's authenticity. This is a watch worthy of its scars, a tool born of purpose, not ostentation. And that's exactly why serious collectors, those interested in history, not hashtags, are quietly adding the FXD to their hoards. If the Black Bay is the hero in the tuxedo, then the Pelagos FXD is the soldier who never returns. Strong, loyal, and unforgettable. 8. Tudor Black Bay GMT. At first glance, the Tudor Black Bay GMT seems like the kind of watch you've seen before. Red and blue bezel, steel case, brushed bracelet. The Pepsi look instantly triggers a flash of déjà vu, but the longer you look, the more it becomes clear. This isn't a copy of Rolex famous GMT Master. It's Tudor's answer to it. Launched in 2018 at Baselworld, the Black Bay GMT came out swinging. It offered everything enthusiasts had been asking for. A true traveler's GMT movement, not the simplified office version found in cheaper alternatives. The in-house MT5652 caliber allows you to independently jump the local hour hand, while the GMT hand stays home time locked. It's the same function you'll find in watches costing twice or even 3 times as much. Add in a 70-hour power reserve, COSC certification, and 200 meters of water resistance, and you've got a daily companion built to fly, dive, and survive. What really sells the GMT, though, is its design language. That matte burgundy and navy aluminum bezel nods to Rolex's legacy while keeping its own personality. Slightly darker, more toolish, less glossy. The domed dial and snowflake hands tie it to Tudor's historical identity, and the chunky case gives it wrist presence that screams adventure, not elegance. It's a watch you could wear from airport lounge to jungle trail without missing a beat. For the first couple of years, prices stayed level. Collectors respected it, but few predicted what would come next. Then Rolex GMT Masters started climbing out of reach. $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, and eyes turned back toward Tudor. Suddenly, the Black Bay GMT wasn't the affordable option. It was the smart one. Now, secondary market values hover well above retail, and waiting lists at boutiques are common. Collectors call it the everyman's traveler, but that undersells it. This is a movement and build quality that competes with heavyweights. What gives the Black Bay GMT its growing value isn't hype. It's utility with soul. It's a machine that makes sense. For seasoned collectors, it's the piece you can wear on your wrist and still smile knowing you made a sharp financial move. For newcomers, it's the gateway drug, the first serious watch that sets the hook deep. If the Pelagos FXD is a soldier, the Black Bay GMT is a pilot, crossing borders, marking time zones, and proving that Tudor no longer walks in Rolex's shadow. It flies on its own wings now, and fast. 7. Tudor Black Bay Ceramic. When Tudor unveiled the Black Bay Ceramic in 2021, it felt like the brand had quietly crossed another line, from retro charm into technical confidence. This wasn't a reissue or a tribute. It was a statement. Tudor could do modern just as well as vintage. The watch itself is a stealth machine. The 41mm matte black ceramic case absorbs light instead of reflecting it, giving it an aura that's more stealth diver than dress watch. The sandblasted finish, black PVD crown, and matching ceramic bezel keep the aesthetic minimal and purposeful, almost tactical. It's a Black Bay stripped to its essence, rebuilt in armor. Under the hood sits the in-house MT5602-1U movement, and this is where the real story lies. It's META certified, meaning it's tested for magnetic resistance up to 15,000 Gauss, chronometer precision, and long-term reliability. The same standard Omega's master chronometers follow. Tudor joining that level of certification signaled a huge leap forward in credibility among serious collectors. The details seal the deal. The skeletonized rotor, the blacked-out bridges with tungsten finishing, and that subtle open caseback, the first in a Black Bay. It's not flashy, it's quietly flexing, the way engineers do when they know they've nailed it. When it first hit the market, reactions were split. Some thought it was too dark, too modern for Tudor's heritage image. But within months, the tone shifted. Collectors began to see it for what it is, a technical milestone hiding under minimalist design. Prices that started near retail have since crept upward, and it's becoming one of those models you rarely see for sale because owners hold on to it. The Black Bay ceramic isn't about nostalgia. It's about precision, progress, and presence. It's Tudor proving it can play on the same stage as the big Swiss heavyweights, not by shouting, but by mastering silence. If the bronze Black Bay 58 tells the story of time's beauty, the ceramic tells the story of time's control, and both, in their own way, are climbing fast. 6. Tudor Ranger. At first glance, the Tudor Ranger doesn't try to impress you. No ceramic bezel, no polished case, no precious metal glinting under the light. It's just steel, numbers, and purpose. The kind of watch you'd expect to find on the wrist of someone who actually goes places. And that's exactly the point. The Ranger was reborn in 2022 to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the British North Greenland expedition, a real-life mission where Tudor Oyster Prince watches endured brutal Arctic conditions. This new model isn't just a tribute, it's a continuation. The 39mm brushed case feels honest, wearable, and quietly confident. The dimensions of an explorer's tool, not a boardroom trophy. The dial is pure functionality. Bold Arabic numerals at 3, 6, 9, and 12. Oversized hands with perfect legibility and a matte black finish that swallows reflections. There's no date window breaking symmetry, no shine begging for attention, just clarity. Inside ticks the in-house MT5402 movement, COSC certified, 70-hour power reserve, and rugged enough to handle what most luxury watches only pretend to. You can feel that no-nonsense energy the second you wind it. The bracelet with Tudor's clever T-fit micro-adjustment clasp seals the deal. Comfort meets utility. When it launched, the Ranger didn't create a frenzy. It wasn't designed to. Collectors called it too simple, too plain, even forgettable. But that's how most future sleepers start out, dismissed until the market catches on. Now the tide is turning. Collectors tired of over-designed sports watches are looking for something more authentic, and the Ranger fits that craving perfectly. Its value is slowly, steadily creeping upward. The kind of appreciation that comes from substance, not hype. Think of it as Tudor's Explorer, a watch built not to dazzle, but to endure, both on the wrist and on the market. The Ranger doesn't just tell time, it tells you what time it is in the watch world. The quiet, purposeful era of real tool watches is coming back. 5. Tudor Black Bay Chrono Panda. This one came out swinging, and the watch world felt it. When Tudor unveiled the Black Bay Chrono Panda in 2021, collectors didn't just nod in approval, they sat up. Here was a chronograph that looked, felt, and performed like a luxury powerhouse. Without the usual 5-digit price tag, that crisp white dial with black subdials outlined in stark contrast like a photograph from the golden age of racing. It's instantly familiar, echoing the iconic Daytona aesthetic, but with Tudor's own muscle. The snowflake hands, the domed sapphire crystal, and the black aluminum tachymeter bezel give it a punchy, neo-vintage character that feels timeless and cool. The kind of watch that looks good in both a pit lane and a coffee shop. Inside, though, is where it really flexes. The caliber MT5813 powers the Panda, a movement developed in partnership with Breitling based on their B01 architecture. It features a column wheel, a vertical clutch, and COSC certification, all of which translate to buttery smooth pusher action and rock-solid timekeeping. At 41mm, the case has presence, but not bulk. It's bold without being brash. The mix of brushed and polished steel gives it depth and dimension, while the bracelet feels substantial, more tool than jewelry. And unlike many fashion chronos, this one's water-resistant to 200 meters. It's not pretending to be tough. It is. When it first dropped, people joked it was the Daytona you could actually buy. But that punchline didn't age well. Because now even this Tudor is getting hard to find. Waitlists formed, prices climbed, dealers quietly began nudging resale above retail. Why? Because collectors realized what they were holding: a chronograph with serious movement architecture, a design rooted in racing heritage, and a brand whose stock keeps rising. The Panda is now in that sweet spot, modern enough to wear daily, classic enough to age gracefully, and collectible enough to hold its own in any serious box. If watches were cars, this would be the sleeper muscle car, unassuming at a glance, unstoppable when you know what's under the hood. The Tudor Black Bay Chrono Panda doesn't shout for attention. It earns it, and that's exactly why its value keeps climbing. 4. Tudor Black Bay 54. Sometimes a brand releases a watch that feels less like a new product and more like déjà vu. Like you've seen it before, not because it's repetitive, but because it's right. That's the Tudor Black Bay 54. Unveiled in 2023, the BB54 isn't just another dive watch. It's Tudor going full circle, back to its origin story. The number 54 isn't random. It's a tribute to the year 1954, when Tudor released its very first diver, the Ref 7922. Back then, it was a tool for explorers and sailors, not a fashion accessory. And this new model, it captures that exact spirit: compact, purposeful, and beautifully unpretentious. At 37 millimeters, it's smaller than most modern divers, but that's its magic. It feels vintage without being fragile, sleek enough for a wrist of any size, and comfortable enough to disappear under a cuff. The brushed steel bezel, the domed crystal, the gilt accents on the dial, all whisper, never shout. It's a love letter to simplicity, and Tudor's designers knew exactly where to stop. Inside is the MT5400 movement, COSC certified, 70-hour power reserve, and entirely in-house. It's the same engine that powers the Black Bay 58 Bronze, proving that Tudor didn't compromise performance for nostalgia. The finishing, the balance, even the rotor, all executed with the kind of restraint that serious collectors recognize immediately. When it launched, people called it too small. Then they tried it on, and everything changed. Collectors who grew tired of oversized divers suddenly saw the BB54 as a breath of fresh air, the watch that reminded them what comfort actually feels like. Dealers started reporting low availability within months, and the resale prices crept past retail. It was the same story that happened with the BB58 a few years earlier, just faster this time. There's a quiet irony here. In a world where brands chase boldness, Tudor made something humble, and it exploded. The Black Bay 54 proves that refinement never goes out of style. It's not for flexing on social media. It's for people who appreciate proportion, heritage, and the art of doing less, but doing it perfectly. And that's why collectors are betting on it. Because this isn't a watch following trends. It's a watch setting up the next decade's definition of what vintage modern really means. 3. Tudor Black Bay Pro. Every now and then, Tudor releases something that doesn't just fill a category, it creates one. That's the Black Bay Pro. When it landed in 2022, people didn't quite know what to make of it. Too thick, too serious, too toolish. Then slowly it started to click. This wasn't another stylish diver. It was a pure explorer's GMT, a nod to an era when watches weren't about flexing, but about finding your way home. At 39 millimeters, the Black Bay Pro packs density. It feels like a block of steel built for survival. The fixed steel bezel, brushed to perfection, gives it that grounded utilitarian energy. The matte black dial is simple, but those bold hour markers filled with creamy lume give it an almost vintage military vibe. And then there's the orange GMT hand, the heartbeat of this design, cutting across the dial with precision and purpose. Inside, the MT565 2 movement drives everything with COSC certified precision, offering a true traveler's GMT function, 70 hours of power reserve, and bulletproof engineering. Now, a year later, it's becoming one of the most talked about Tudors in collector circles. Pre-owned prices are climbing above retail, especially for early production pieces in pristine condition. Forums are full of stories from owners who say it's the one Tudor they can't stop wearing. It's that good. What makes the Black Bay Pro rise in value isn't flash, it's focus. In a lineup full of polished steel and vintage charm, this watch stands out as the worker. The GMT for people who actually go places, not just tag locations online. In many ways, it's Tudor's answer to modern wanderers. The ones who need one watch to track where they are, where they've been, and where they're heading next. And that, both literally and symbolically, is why the Black Bay Pro is climbing fast. 2. Tudor Pelagos 39. The Pelagos 39 is the moment Tudor proved that tool watch and luxury don't have to live on opposite ends of the spectrum. Released in late 2022, it was a surprise. Not a limited edition, not a reissue, but a complete rethinking of what the Pelagos line could be. Slimmer, lighter, and sleeker, yet still unmistakably Pelagos at heart. Made from grade 2 titanium, the case feels feather-light, yet solid. That perfect balance between comfort and confidence. The satin finish catches light softly, never shouting. On the wrist, the 39mm diameter hits the Goldilocks zone. Compact, balanced, effortless. And then there's the dial. Deep satin black with subtle sunburst shimmer, paired with luminous monoblock ceramic markers that glow like beacons in low light. Every detail whispers precision. Inside beats the MT5400, an in-house COSC certified caliber with a 70-hour power reserve and the kind of reliability that Tudor's reputation now rests on. There's no date clutter, no unnecessary text, just raw distilled function. Even the bracelet, titanium with Tudor's T-fit clasp, allows instant micro-adjustments, one of the most comfortable systems in its class. When it debuted, some hardcore divers said, but it's only 200 meters water resistant. And sure, it's not meant for saturation diving. But that misses the point entirely. Collectors caught on fast. Within months, waitlists formed, and the model started trading over retail. It struck a chord with people who loved the toughness of the Pelagos, but wanted a slimmer form. A watch that felt both purposeful and personal. The Pelagos 39 represents a new chapter for Tudor, a design that's unapologetically functional, but refined enough to live outside the water. It's the kind of piece that signals maturity. The brand no longer trying to prove it can build a diver, but showing it can build the diver for everyday life. If the Black Bay 58 is a nod to Tudor's past, the Pelagos 39 is its quiet declaration of the future. And the market knows it. Prices are climbing, supply is tight, and collectors are holding on. Tudor finally made the perfect modern tool watch, and the world noticed. 1. Tudor Pelagos 42 left-hand drive. When Tudor released the Pelagos LHD back in 2016, most people didn't realize what they were looking at. A left-crown dive watch in titanium, built for saturation divers, with a serial number engraved on the case back. It sounded like a niche experiment. Fast forward a few years, and it's quietly become one of the most collectible modern Tudors ever made. The Pelagos 42 LHD is a study in function over flash. Its titanium case gives it a light, tool-like feel on the wrist, while the matte ceramic bezel and bead-blasted finish make it disappear under light. The crown's placement on the left side, originally designed for professional divers who wore their watches on the right wrist, gives it an asymmetric charm that makes collectors stop and stare. It's different without trying. The dial is where the magic really happens. Creamy, off-white lume instead of stark white, giving it a soft, vintage tone against the black background. The red Pelagos text adds just the right amount of energy. Subtle, but unmistakable. It's not pretending to be retro, it just understands its history. Inside, the in-house MT5612 LHD movement keeps things bulletproof. COSC certified, 70-hour power reserve, and built for professional diving at 500 meters. Add a helium escape valve, and this isn't a desk diver. It's the real deal. At launch, the LHD was overlooked. Too niche, too utilitarian, too far from the steel and gold trend. But as collectors started craving authenticity again, its value began to rise. The numbered case backs, each piece individually engraved, added that perfect hint of rarity. Prices have since climbed steadily, with early low serial examples commanding serious premiums. The Pelagos LHD embodies what Tudor does best. Real heritage, real purpose, no pretense. It's not the watch you buy to show off. It's the one you keep because you understand it. That's why it leads this list. Because while the market chases polish and hype, the LHD sits quietly in its titanium skin, aging gracefully and proving that true value, like true design, never needs to shout. Tudor's story isn't one of sudden fame. It's a story of steady evolution. From a brand once defined by affordability to one now respected for integrity and design, Tudor has quietly become the modern collector's secret weapon. These watches don't just rise in value because they're trendy, they rise because they matter. If you've made it this far, you probably see it too. Every model on this list carries a piece of that DNA, honest craftsmanship, heritage that feels lived in, and the courage to stand apart. So before you chase the next hyped release, take another look at Tudor, because 10 years from now, these might be the watches people wish they'd bought when prices were still sane. If this breakdown helped you see the brand in a new light, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a fellow watch addict. Drop your favorite Tudor in the comments. I want to hear which one you think will explode next. Thanks for watching. And remember, the best time to buy a Tudor was yesterday. The second best time might be right now.